Hello, welcome to Unbelievable Tales.
What would you do if a stranger showed up at a black tie event and claimed your past wasn't over, because it had a name, a face, and a court file? Elijah Ward built his life on closing chapters, not reopening them. But the girl who interrupted his speech had eyes just like hers, and a letter that would unravel everything he thought he buried. A daughter, a legacy, and a chance to make things right if it's not too late. Before we dive into the story, comment below where you're watching from. Enjoy the story, everyone. The room was glass and gold and power. The kind of place where handshakes carried weight and smiles were rehearsed. Elijah Ward stood at the head of it, flawless in a black tux, glass of untouched champagne on the podium, and a speech he didn't need to read glowing behind him on the screen. His voice was smooth, controlled, the product of 20 years in courtrooms and boardrooms. Everyone listened when Elijah spoke, they always had. Until someone moved at the back of the room. She didn't belong. That much was obvious. Not in her oversized gray hoodie, not with those muddy sneakers, not in this room full of silver cufflinks and designer perfume. Security hadn't noticed her yet, but Elijah had. He paused mid-sentence, a blink too long, and dozens of heads turned to see what he was looking at. She walked straight toward him. Not fast. Not fearful. Just steady. And when she reached the foot of the stage, she held up a manila envelope with both hands. "I believe this is yours," she said. Her voice didn't tremble. Elijah frowned, confused as murmurs rippled behind him. "Miss, this is a private." But she wasn't looking at anyone else. Just him. "You knew her." "My mother. Claire Maddox. She died 3 months ago. And she said if I ever wanted to know the truth I had to find you." The name punched him in the gut. Elijah didn't flinch, not visibly. But something behind his eyes changed. He stepped off the stage without another word. A different man would have called security. A different man would have denied it all, handled it in silence. But Elijah took the envelope, and the girl walked away without waiting for permission. He left the gala minutes later, blazer folded over his arm, applause forgotten, headlines already forming in someone's notes. The letter was short. "If you're reading this, then I'm gone, and she found you. I always said I'd tell her, but I never did. I didn't know how. You once told me truth is the cleanest kind of pain, so here it is. Her name is Marley. She's yours." There was no return address, no plea for help, just the signature, Claire. He read it 5 times, then again, then folded it precisely, like he used to fold court documents when the ruling went against him. At home, the silence hit harder. No music, no TV, just the echo of her voice in his mind, Claire's voice. Rougher than he remembered, softer in parts, like someone who'd lost and kept going anyway. He didn't sleep, couldn't. Marley. The name felt foreign in his mouth. But the face? The girl in the hoodie, with Claire's defiant chin and those sharp, assessing eyes? That part he couldn't deny. The next morning, Elijah skipped the gym, skipped breakfast, and went to the address on the note she'd scribbled on the back of the envelope. It was a converted warehouse in a part of the city that didn't make the tourist maps. Faded murals, broken pavement, and a doorbell that didn't work. A boy answered the door. 12 maybe, eyes too tired for his age. "She's not here." "I'm not here to hurt her," Elijah said quietly. "I just want to talk." The boy stared at him for a beat, then disappeared. A minute later, Marley appeared in the doorway. No hoodie today. Still no makeup. A scraped-up denim jacket and guarded eyes. "You read it." He nodded. She leaned against the doorframe. So, I'd like to know more. About you. About her. If that's okay." She hesitated, then motioned him in. The place smelled like burnt toast and cheap incense. A mattress on the floor. A second-hand bookshelf with half the shelves missing. A poster of some band he'd never heard of. And drawings. Pinned to the wall, taped to the fridge, curled on the edges. All signed the same way, M. "She was sick for a long time," Marley said, crossing her arms. "Didn't want me to know. Kept saying she'd beat it. That she always bounced back." "She didn't tell me she had a child," Elijah said. "She didn't tell me you were alive." The silence between them crackled. Not angry. Just full. "I tried to find her," he admitted. "A few years after we separated. But she was gone. She was never really here," Molly said. "She moved a lot. Took odd jobs. kept her last name off everything. She was trying to disappear. She succeeded. They sat. No coffee. No small talk. You don't have to play dad, Marley said suddenly. I didn't come to wreck your life. I don't think you could. But I don't know what my life is anymore. She looked at him then. Really looked. And he saw it, the doubt, the grief, the steel underneath. You're not what I expected, she said. What did you expect? Someone colder, more polished. Someone who'd lie to my face and then write a check to clear his conscience. Elijah smiled faintly. I've written a lot of checks, but I've never used one to erase a person. She didn't smile back. He stood. I'm not here to force anything, but if you ever want to talk, or ask questions, or yell, I'll be around. She followed him to the door. Before he left, she said, You broke her heart, you know? I know. And mine too. A little. Just now. Elijah nodded. I'll see you around, Marley. Maybe. The door closed behind him. He stood outside for a long time, hands in his pockets. The city louder than usual. Claire was gone. Marley existed. And the past wasn't done with him. Not by a long shot. Elijah didn't go back to the office that day. His assistant sent a stream of messages. Depositions to review, a client threatening to pull out, a dinner with the mayor's aide. He ignored them all. Instead, he walked, past skyscrapers and cafes, through parks he didn't remember being planted. He needed the noise of the city to drown out the noise in his head. He ended up at his old building, the one with the balcony where Claire used to stand barefoot, sipping coffee she never finished. They'd lived there for 9 months, long enough to leave shadows. The doorman was new, the name on the call box unfamiliar, but the bricks were the same, and so was the memory of her laugh echoing off the hallway. He didn't stay long. That night, he sat in the dark, rereading the letter. Marley's name, Claire's handwriting. He traced the curve of the sea like it might explain something, like he could find a reason buried in pen strokes. The next morning, Marley showed up outside his office. She was leaning against a street lamp, chewing on a plastic straw, ignoring every suit who walked past. How did you find me? He asked. Google. You're not exactly low profile. Fair. I want to know how you met her. He held the door open. Inside? She looked up at the glass tower, unimpressed. Only if you have snacks. In the conference room, she poked around like it was an exhibit. The framed degrees, the glass walls, the coffee machine with too many buttons. Claire and I met in law school, Elijah began. She was better than me. Smarter. Funnier. I was too serious. She called me Professor Doom for the first semester. She always had stupid nicknames, Marley said. She called me Pickle until I was 10. She made everything lighter. What happened? I wanted something else. Prestige. She didn't. She dropped out and started working at a shelter. I took a job at the DA's office. I thought I was winning. Did she tell you she was pregnant? No. Would it have changed anything? He hesitated. Yes, I'd like to think it would've. Marley studied him like a puzzle. She was alone when she died. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix it. No, it doesn't. She stood up, walked to the window. You know what's weird? She said. Everyone keeps telling me she was this beautiful, kind woman, that she glowed when she laughed, that she made people feel seen. But I remember a woman who was tired all the time, who didn't always have rent, who cried in the bathroom when she thought I was asleep. You remember the truth. No, I remember the pieces I saw. I want the rest. He reached for a folder from his shelf and opened it. Not court papers, photos. Claire in the old apartment. Claire in a diner booth holding a fork like a microphone. Claire asleep on a couch, a textbook covering her face. Marley stared. She looks so young, she whispered. She was. They sat in silence for a while. She finally looked up. Do you think people can change? Yes, but not all at once, and not without help. She nodded slowly. Okay, then I want to meet again. When? Friday. After school. I'll be there. She left without shaking his hand, without smiling. But she came back. Every Friday. Sometimes they talked about Claire. Sometimes about school. Sometimes about nothing at all, a dog she liked, a teacher she hated, a sandwich she refused to admit was good. Elijah started keeping her favorite snacks in the cabinet. Peanut butter crackers and orange soda. She never said thank you, but she always took them. 3 weeks in, she brought a sketchbook. Flipped to a page with a pencil drawing of Claire in profile, eyes closed. She hated when I drew her, Marley said. Said I always made her look too sad. Elijah stared at the drawing for a long time. She doesn't look sad. She looks like she's thinking. She always was. Later that night, he stared at the ceiling in his penthouse, wondering when his life had become so quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't soothe, the kind that stings. He hadn't dated in years. Didn't keep close friends. Just work. Always work. It had kept the world at bay. But now the world had found him again in the shape of a girl with Claire's eyes. The following Friday, Marley didn't show. He waited an hour. Checked his phone. Nothing. By the second hour, he was calling every hospital in a 10-mile radius. On the third, she walked into his office, soaked from the rain, lips trembling with cold. I didn't know where else to go, she said. He grabbed a towel from the break room and wrapped it around her shoulders. What happened? They kicked us out. Me and Jamie. The building's being gutted. They're turning it into condos. Jamie? My roommate. He's barely legal. Works nights. We can't afford anything else. Elijah stood still for a moment. Then he reached for his keys. Come on. Where? Somewhere dry. She hesitated, then nodded. He took her to a townhouse on the west side. One he rarely used. It had a fireplace, warm lighting, and a stocked fridge. She looked at the leather couch like it was a museum piece. You can stay here, he said. For now. Until you figure something out. Why are you doing this? Because I should have been there before. And I wasn't. She sat, pulled her knees up. I'm not a charity case. I know. I don't need saving. I know that too. She didn't speak for a long time. Just stared into the fire like it owed her an answer. He left her there with dry clothes, fresh towels, and a phone number on the table. That night, she didn't call, but she stayed. The next morning, Elijah found her in the kitchen, barefoot, pouring cereal into a bowl too small for the amount she'd chosen. You're out of oat milk, she said flatly, as if they were roommates and not two strangers bound by a broken thread of history. I'll add it to the list. She nodded, spoon clinking against the ceramic. I'm not staying long. Just enough to sort things out. He didn't challenge her. Marley didn't talk much over breakfast. She answered questions with one-word replies and ignored the ones that cut too deep. But when she left for school, she took the keys he offered and she didn't slam the door. He canceled meetings that day. Something he hadn't done in years without a valid legal emergency. Instead, he visited the building she'd been evicted from. The front door was boarded. Graffiti covered what was once the lobby. A small stack of junk mail curled beneath the threshold. The woman next door cracked her window. Looking for the girl? Yes. She was a good kid. Kept to herself. Looked out for the younger ones. They didn't deserve to be tossed like that. No one does. Are you her caseworker? He paused. Something like that. The woman studied him. Well, tell her Mrs. L says hi. That evening, Marley returned to the townhouse without knocking. Her cheeks were wind-chapped, her jacket too thin. There was a fight in the hallway today, she said as she shrugged it off. One kid threw a whole backpack. Elijah looked up from his laptop. Did it hit you? No. But I took the candy that fell out. A beat passed. Then, a small grin. He chuckled. Survival instincts. I learned from the best. He wanted to ask about Claire again, but didn't. Instead, he gestured to the takeout boxes on the counter. Thai or Indian? Both. She ate with her sleeves pulled over her hands, eyes scanning the TV even when it was muted. Afterward, she did the dishes without being asked. Do you always take in random people who say they're yours? She asked as she wiped the last plate. No. Just the ones who say it like they dare me to prove them wrong. She rolled her eyes. I'm not trying to belong to you. Good. Because you already belong to yourself. She didn't respond, but her hands stopped shaking. The next few weeks blurred into a rhythm neither of them acknowledged aloud. She went to school. He went to work. They crossed paths over toast and evening news, sometimes speaking, sometimes just sharing space. Elijah found himself learning her without realizing it. She only ate the crusts of sandwiches. She hummed when reading. She painted when anxious, abstract streaks of red and violet and shadow taped to the walls of the guest room she refused to call hers. One afternoon, he returned home early and heard laughter. Not hers. He found her and a boy, lanky, with a skateboard leaning against the door, sitting on the living room floor, playing a card game. "Jamie, this is the guy," Marley said. Jamie stood. "The guy?" She shrugged. "My maybe dad." Elijah blinked. "That's not inaccurate." Jamie offered a hand. "She talks about you sometimes. Not nicely, but still. Good to know." Marley swatted his arm. "Don't make it weird. It's already weird. Your face is on the front page." Elijah stiffened. "What?" Jamie pulled out his phone. There it was, a grainy photo, him and Marley on the courthouse steps from weeks ago, her face half-turned, his expression unreadable. D.A. Ward's hidden legacy? He exhaled through his nose. "I didn't know," Marley said. "It's not your fault. But it's about me." He nodded. "And I'll make sure it ends." That night, he met with his firm's PR team. The advice was predictable. Deny, deflect, delay. But Elijah did none of it. He held a press briefing instead. "I won't be answering questions about her life," he said, firm and clear. "She is not a political piece or a courtroom strategy. She's a person. And I failed her mother once. I won't fail her now." Then he walked off stage. No spin. No smiles. Back at home, Marley was watching the replay on TV. Her eyes were unreadable. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Yes, I did. You didn't say I was your daughter. Because you haven't said I am." She looked down. Picked at the sleeve of her hoodie. "It doesn't mean I'm not thinking about it." "I know." She stood. Left the room. But the next morning there was a note beside his coffee mug. "Thanks for not making me a headline. M." It was written in black ink, slanted left, with a tiny heart drawn after the M. He didn't smile. But he read it twice. And folded it into his wallet. Winter hit harder than expected. The townhouse windows fogged up each morning, and the furnace made a clicking sound Marley claimed she liked. "It's not perfect," she said, curled on the couch with a blanket and a chipped mug of cocoa, "but it's consistent. Like a heartbeat." Elijah had never thought about heating systems that way. She spent more nights in than out now. Her sketchbook traveled from room to room, often left open on the table, half-finished portraits smudging at the corners. Some were faces he didn't recognize. One was his. He never mentioned it. One evening, he came home to find her asleep on the couch, the news playing softly in the background. A photo of Claire flashed on screen, old, scanned from some community article years ago. Claire holding a child in front of a local food drive. The caption read, "Remembering Claire Maddox, advocate, mother, fighter." The sound didn't wake Marley, but he turned the volume down anyway. Later, she stirred and blinked at him, bleary-eyed. "You kept her picture," she mumbled. "I never stopped. You stopped everything else." He sat beside her, not touching. "I didn't know how to stay. I didn't know how to leave," she whispered. "Every day, I just waited for her to come back to herself. You were the adult. I was 13. They didn't talk again that night. But in the morning, there were 2 mugs on the table. One for him. One for her. She'd written his name on his impermanent marker. "Mr. Ward." He didn't correct her. A week later, the principal called. Marley had punched someone. He arrived at the school office with his coat still unbuttoned and the bitter wind trapped in his collar. "She hit another student," the vice principal said. "A boy named Chad Walker." "Why?" He called her a name. "What name?" The man hesitated, then relented. "A charity case." Said she was a sob story with a sugar daddy. Elijah's knuckles tightened around the file folder. "And what punishment does Chad Walker get?" Don't answer. I'll speak to the board directly." Marley sat outside, arms folded, backpack at her feet. "You're not going to yell at me?" she asked. "Would it help?" "No." He knelt down so they were eye level. "You don't have to prove your worth with your fists. They don't listen otherwise. They will. Eventually. And until then, I will." She looked at him. Hard. "Why?" "Because you're mine. Whether we say the word or not." She looked away. But when they left, she walked beside him instead of ahead. At home, she painted a furious streak of red across a blank canvas and labeled it Noise. The next day, Elijah received a letter from Child Protective Services. It was from Claire, written 6 months before she passed. "If anything happens to me," it began, "please consider Elijah Ward as guardian. He doesn't know about Marley, not really. But he once told me that when you love someone, even their silence matters. And I think he'll hear her better than anyone. The form was unsigned, unofficial, but the weight of it felt like law. He set it beside his laptop and stared at it for a long time. That evening, Marley came home late. Her jacket was torn. What happened? Bike crash. Jamie's handlebars snapped. You okay? I bled a little. It was very dramatic. She collapsed onto the floor and laughed like it wasn't heavy. He brought out the first aid kit. She didn't flinch when he cleaned the cut on her arm. You've done this before, she said. Too many times. For people who didn't stay. I might stay. He paused. Or not. I don't know, she added quickly. I'd like it if you did. She didn't respond. Just let him bandage her arm. When she fell asleep that night, her sketchbook lay open beside the couch. A drawing of Claire again, but this time Claire was smiling. He stayed up tracing the lines with his eyes. The next day, he called his lawyer. I want to file for guardianship, he said. Full. No half measures. There'll be questions. Scrutiny. Let them come. Marley found out when she saw the documents on the counter. You're trying to adopt me? I'm offering. Not trying. What if I say no? Then nothing changes. She looked at him, 1,000 emotions caught in her throat. You really want to do this? Yes. Why? Because you're already my daughter. I'm just waiting for you to say it out loud. She didn't answer. Not that day. Not the next. But on Friday night, she handed him a drawing. It was of the townhouse. The furnace, the couch, the cracked mug. Him standing at the stove, burning toast. At the bottom she'd written, home, probably. He looked up. You misspelled probably. On purpose, she said. They laughed. And that night, for the first time, she called him something different. Good night, Dad. He didn't answer right away. His throat closed. But he whispered back, good night, kiddo. Spring broke through the city like a promise. Trees budding along sidewalks, warm air sweeping away the ache of winter. Marley opened the windows each morning, claiming the townhouse needed to breathe, and Elijah let her, even when it let the noise in. He didn't mind the sound anymore. The guardianship hearing was set for May 2nd. The paperwork was in order, his lawyer confident. But Elijah had stopped measuring things in certainty. He measured them in moments now, in shared breakfasts, in the way Marley rolled her eyes when he made bad jokes, in how she left her sketchbook out like a trust offering. One evening, she brought home a canvas. Bigger than usual. This one's for the wall, she said. It was a portrait of Claire. But not like before. This Claire was bold. Standing in sunlight, wind in her hair, eyes fierce and alive. At her side was a smaller figure. A girl with wild hair and untied shoelaces. Behind them, barely visible but still there, was Elijah. Not central. Not dominant. Just present. Watching. She used to say I was always watching, he murmured. You still are. He hung the canvas in the hallway, across from the mirror. So every time they walked past, they'd see who they were and who they came from. The day before the hearing, Marley woke up early and paced the kitchen. She burnt the toast. She didn't joke about it. Are you nervous? She asked. No. Liar. He smiled. A little. What if the judge says no? Then we'll appeal. And I'll keep showing up until there's no more room for doubt. She nodded, sat down, then looked at him. Do I have to give up my last name? No. Can I? You can do anything you want. The hearing was brief. Official. Boring even, at least to the people in the room who didn't know what it cost them to get there. The judge asked Elijah a series of questions. Do you understand the responsibilities? Do you accept full legal guardianship? Do you intend to provide for her financially, emotionally, and physically? He answered yes to all. Then came Marley's turn. Do you wish to be placed under the legal guardianship of Mr. Ward? She hesitated, not because she doubted, but because the moment was big and she wanted to feel it settle. Yes, she said. I already am. The judge smiled. Then it's done. Afterward, Elijah bought her a cupcake with too much frosting. She smeared some on his nose. He let her. Jamie met them at the fountain downtown where they ate in the sun and argued about which Marvel movie was most overrated. At home, Marley changed her phone background to a photo of them, Elijah in his blazer, slightly crooked tie, and her in that denim jacket she refused to retire, holding up the signed court form like a trophy. Weeks passed. Then months. The townhouse grew fuller, not just with things, but with life. Jamie crashed on the couch more often. Marley painted a mural on the stairwell. Elijah built shelves for her books, though she still left them on the floor. They hosted Thanksgiving. Marley cooked half the meal. Jamie burned the rolls. Elijah played jazz and pretended not to watch them both like a proud, awkward father. One rainy night, Marley sat on the windowsill, sketching a tree. Do you think she'd be okay with this? She asked softly. With what? Me. You. This house. This future. Elijah didn't answer right away. Then he said, I think she'd say you earned it. Marley nodded. And you? He looked out at the streetlight haloed in rain. I'm not sure I ever earned anything, he said. But I'm not letting it go. She climbed down and placed the sketch on his desk. It was the tree again, this time with roots. Deep and tangled, but holding. On the trunk was a carving, M plus E plus C. I'm getting better at initials, she said, smirking. He placed a hand on her shoulder. You're getting better at everything. That night, he sat in his office long after she'd gone to bed, her laughter echoing faintly from upstairs. He opened a drawer and pulled out the old letter, Claire's first one, the one that started everything. He read it again, then folded it gently, placed it beside the adoption papers, and closed the drawer. No frame, no spotlight, just where it belonged, part of the foundation. In the morning, the furnace clicked on. The house warmed. Marley came down in mismatched socks and a ponytail that was already falling apart. She poured cereal without looking and muttered, We're out of oat milk again. I know, Elijah said, sipping coffee. It's already on the list. She sat across from him, chin in her hand, eyes sleepy but content. And for the first time in his life, Elijah Ward didn't feel like he was standing alone on a podium. He felt home. Not in the courtroom. Not in the tower. But here. In a house with burned toast and permanent marker mugs and a girl who never asked for a father but let him become one anyway.
Bye, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.